Hello, Phoenix Rose here again. If you've joined the Rose Temple, you're probably going to see a lot of me. For this module, I want to talk about attachment theory. Attachment theory really relates to how we operate in relationship depending on how we were raised as children. It can be a great way to raise children, being informed of attachment theory, and it can also really affect how you're relating as adults. And so there's 3 or 4 different attachment styles depending on how you were brought up, and this becomes really important now as you're an adult in your relationship dynamics. So I'm going to start with avoidant. Avoidants were typically raised by a codependent parent and or an avoidant parent. And avoidants often learn to cater to the adult before their own desires. And so they were giving to please mom or dad. And or their parents were absentee, they were working a lot, they had this avoidant, they're not very in touch with their emotions, and so the child learns to mimic this behavior. Avoidants as adults, you can guess it, avoid. They avoid conflict, they avoid intensity, they often avoid love and relationships. They tend to have addictions outside of their relationships, and often they'll leave to pursue their addictions. This can be sex addiction, it can be drug addiction, it can be any type of addiction, video games that take them away from the relationship. Avoidants tend to attract the next attachment style, which is anxious attachers. Anxious attachers had caregivers that were not consistent in fulfilling their needs. So in one moment, they were getting their needs met, they were getting fed, breastfed, or bottle fed. In the next moment, when they were asking for their needs to be met, it wasn't happening. And so the fulfillment of needs as a child was very inconsistent. And so they attract this sort of dynamic through avoidance that they date in their adult experience. Avoidance and anxious attract like moths to a flame. And typically these 2 types on the attachment spectrum are the ones who are single because they still have attachment wounding to work out. It's actually proven by science that there are aspects of the brain that develop differently for those who were given secure attachments as a child. We're going to talk about that next. And those who were not interacted with in a secure sort of way. The brain forms differently. Anxious people are anxious. They need a lot of reassurance. They might be needy or clingy, especially if you're starting to pull away as an avoidant. And then they're reaching for love. For them, love equals survival. Connection equals survival. So relationships are the way that they thrive and live. And they're going to attract people who show up inconsistently to meet their needs because that's what's familiar to them. That's how they were brought up. Yeah. The next attachment style is disorganized. Disorganized children often had abusive parents, and so they spend part of their childhood in fear. And they have a little bit of the avoidant and they have a little bit of the anxious. And so in some moments they might be like, oh, please don't leave me. Where are you going? And the next they're like, get the fuck away from me. I don't want to talk to you. Right? And so they're a little bit of that push-pull back and forth. One moment they're really available. The next they're withdrawn. And you're confused. What's happening? What are you doing? Disorganized. The ideal attachment style is secure. Secure adults were raised by parents who consistently showed up for their needs, gave a lot of love. Often they had both mom and dad there, and their needs were always met. And if they weren't met, there was an explanation from the parents as to why. So they developed secure attachment. Secure children make healthy adults. Insecure children make unhealthy adults. And whichever one you are, whichever attachment style that you have, it's really not your fault. It's the product of your upbringing. But in order to have healthy relationships as an adult, you do have to learn how to create secure attachment dynamics. Secure attachment can be given as a gift from your parents, but you can also learn secure attachment through therapy, through communication practices, through doing your inner trauma healing, things of that nature. Secure people are the ones who are often in relationship for a really long time. And if they're not in relationship, they don't need a relationship. They're totally cool with who they are. Anxious people always want in a relationship. Avoidant people are like, I'm not doing relationship. I'm not ready for that. I'm not going to commit. because I'm not going to commit. I'm afraid. They're afraid of intimacy. Because intimacy to them, to the avoidant, means loss of freedom, loss of self. Not having intimacy to the anxious means I'm not going to survive. I'm going to die because my needs aren't being met. I'm going to die. And again, the disorganized is a little bit of all of these things. And often difficult to relate with. One moment they're connected, one moment they're gone. And you don't know what you're going to get at what time. So these are the 4 attachment styles, and there are different ways of describing them. The anxious could be described as wavy. The avoidant could be described as an island. You're just on your own. Anxious people need to co-regulate. They do better when you're with them, you're working through the problems, you're touching them, and they have someone there to talk things through with. The avoidant self-regulates. They need to go away onto a mountaintop by themselves and take care of their feelings. Anxious people have a lot of feelings. Avoidants tend to not be in very good connection with their feelings or their desires. Some traditions utilize the 4 attachment styles, some use 3, but there are disorganized people. This is a little tidbit on attachment styles and relating and how it might affect your relationship dynamics. And of course, if you're wanting to experience healthy relationships and intimacy, you want to learn principles that create secure attachment. Secure attachment comes from valuing and honoring the needs of your partner. When you're in relationship, it's a co-creation. We're showing up for each other. It's no longer me versus you. I'm not getting my needs met. It's how can we meet our needs? You're willing to listen to your partner. You're willing to make shifts, receive feedback, adjust in order to be a loving, devoted partner. Secure attachment equals consistency and excellent communication. Doing what you say you're going to do, right? Things of that nature. So again, secure attachment can be learned, but if you don't have secure attachment, the journey of healing your attachment wounding can be really painful and really difficult. And so this is an area that I can help you in, help you to establish new healthy pathways. And it's something that you really need to look at. What is the attachment style of you and your partner, especially if you're in a relationship and things aren't going well? Typically it's because of attachment wounding. Again, avoidant, anxious, dance. Those 2 have very different needs. I need to be alone, I need to be with. And they clash and they create a lot of pain for the people who are participating in the relationship. For an avoidant person, being anxious and needy and wanting to connect all the time is abusive. And for the anxious person, when somebody avoids and leaves and abandons, it's abusive. And so these 2 often create a lot of fires and have a lot of tension and have a very difficult time relating together. Anyway, if you would like to talk about or discuss your attachment style, feel free to book a session with me. And you can also take an attachment quiz online. Diane Pooler has an amazing attachment quiz, which will really rate you on the spectrum. The goal is to earn secure attachment, but wherever you're at is perfect and beautiful, and we can meet each other where we're at. So much love. I'll see you soon at the Rose Temple.